I'm a chameleon, yeah.
I have half the brain that you do.
I did it for The Rock.
Oh my God!
The Most Crucial Podcast presents Crucial Squared Circle, the most crucial wrestling podcast with Mark Franchise and Davison Sarai.
A little bit of the bubbly.
And that's the bottom line. The Stone Cold said so.
All right, welcome back to the Crucial Squared Circle. It's Mark Franchise here. It's 104.9 The Edge's Wrestling Podcast here with the ever-lovely Davison Sarai.
Happy Hanukkah, Franchise.
Happy Hanukkah. And my good buddy, as always, T, joining us.
Hello.
Back in the game. We took a couple weeks off. It was Thanksgiving, and we just had a whole lot going on, but we're ready to get back into the mix of things. Tons of things that have happened.
I just got back from Saudi Arabia. So thrilled to be back.
Glad you're safe.
I can't wait to put some deodorant on, Jesus.
Oh my gosh.
It's been ages.
Yeah, no deodorant allowed over there.
Nah, well, not
not on the plane, at
Not when the
least.
military police pry it out of your hands because of Vince's bullshit.
What are you going to do with that? I was just going to smell good.
It's got aluminum nitrate.
Nope. Not in these parts.
Oh my God. Anyway.
How's wrestling been, everybody?
Yeah, wrestling's been super interesting, especially the last couple of weeks because we're way behind on some of the stuff that happened a couple of weeks ago that we'll kind of lightly touch on too. Obviously, the Jim Cornette thing was a little bit of a blemish on the whole wrestling community, and everybody got up in arms about it. They got their own opinions where they're like, it wasn't racist. It wasn't. And that's the equivalent of Jesse the Body Ventura making excuses for heels doing bad things in the 80s when you clearly just saw them break the rules.
Well, so for whoever hasn't heard of it, sorry, I'm so busy talking about Vince all the time. Jim Cornette, in his infinite wisdom, was describing the toughness of one Trevor Murdoch, who one could argue is as tough as a $2 steak. But in this occasion was hyped up as being the only guy tough enough to strap a bucket of fried chicken to his back and ride a motor scooter across Ethiopia.
Yeah.
Now, as a child born in 76, I can tell you that this sort of sentiment was widely acceptable among the white population in 84 or 85.
Yeah.
It kind of still is today, but at least people are starting to listen for that sort of thing. Cornette claims now that he's been making that joke since the early 90s, back when it was just a starvation joke. Because, that's pretty funny.
Right.
It's not because they're black.
People suffering is awesome.
So it's not because they're black that it's funny. It's because they're starving. And it just had to be a bucket of fried chicken because that's the funniest visual I can come up with. I don't know what to tell you. That's his explanation.
Yeah. I just, listen, there are some videos on YouTube, especially of half of the first African-American tag team champions, Tony Atlas. There's a video that's on YouTube. And that mentality goes way back. In the 80s, I won't say that it was acceptable, not from my point of view, but in a grand view, it was very acceptable to make those tongue-in-cheek race jokes because I guess maybe that was just a reflection of the time where everybody was, like, for some reason, super okay with that kind of stuff.
Well, that's the thing that gets me is he says it's just funnier that way, and then he kind of leaves it there. It's funny because you're a white American with repressed racism, except he's overt about his. And so when you get a chance to, like, steam valve that shit just the tiniest, you can kind of, like, giggle and wink and elbow nudge.
Yeah.
Except he's been saying this kind of shit for decades.
Right.
And this ain't a joke for him. I really don't think it is. Still
hasn't won any awards.
Nah.
So, and alluding back to that, the video I was telling you about, this was before Hulk Hogan was the red, and when the whole racism thing with Hulk Hogan being secretly recorded, on one hand, I think that's really crappy when someone's having a candid conversation and they're exposed. On the other hand, I have no problem someone being exposed for being a total racist crap.
Nope.
I have zero sympathy for somebody like that.
Especially for a public figure where some of my money may land. I want to know where that money may go.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like, if it's, if there's potentially embarrassing things that come out in a secretly recorded conversation, then I'll start having a little sympathy. If it's something that's like a personal thing, if it's something that's not causing any kinds of hatred or tearing down of anybody else's, like, you know, if somebody's being secretly recorded talking about some really personal stuff and that gets out, that's bullshit.
Sure.
You know, but this was a racist tirade that he went on. But I've been knowing that Hulk Hogan's been racist and had no problem saying any of that stuff because it's nothing to take away from what he said, but what he said in that secret recording is nothing compared to this YouTube video. If you look up on YouTube, Tony Atlas, Hulk Hogan, it's probably the most racist thing I've ever seen in wrestling.
I've never seen this.
Oh my gosh.
Oh wait, was it in wrestling? Like it was an angle?
Yes.
Oh.
And I'm always hesitant to talk about it because it makes me laugh in the sense of not because it was funny, but more of how did you ever get away with saying
that holy
this?
Fuck, what am I looking at?
Oh my,
Weird.
it's not
Yeah.
even, it's way worse than just the N-word. Like, you would almost much rather hear that than what Hogan says to Atlas.
But this is on a mic in a intentionally recorded wrestling angle.
With Vince McMahon. Basically, Tony Atlas is out there, and they're doing like just kind of a shoot interview, and they're talking, and McMahon is like, well, you know, you're in excellent shape. Why don't you take your shirt off and show the audience what you're working with? And Tony Atlas was just like a brick shit house. I mean, he was just muscles. But, you know,
I thought you meant he said that.
Start singing.
But he was...
What are you working with? A brick shit house.
Well, but he was also kind of humble about it. So he's like, I know. And McMahon's like, shut up and take your shirt off, basically. You know, like, show us your pecs.
All that beef.
So, you know, he takes his shirt off and he starts flexing, and that's when Hogan comes out there. And this is much, much earlier than the red and yellow Hogan. This is when he was a heel and he was still working territories, and he's like, he just said, I'm not comfortable really talking about what he said exactly.
Right. We'll skim those details.
We'll check it out a little bit later. But like I said, you go to YouTube, you can see it for yourself. Your jaw literally will drop when you hear what Hogan says to him, because it's unfathomable that they would allow something like that to be said.
Well, let's be real specific. They allowed it means Vince did.
Right.
If Vince is in the ring, that means this is Vince approved. There's been nothing but chatter about how racist Vince is for decades, and people still want to pass that off.
And
Booker T.
It's just, I don't know, man. I can't let that stuff. So when I saw that video years ago, when Hogan's secretly recorded thing came out, I'm like, well, yeah, have you guys ever seen the freaking video from the early 80s? Like, he's clearly never had a problem saying things like that. And even if that was a script, even if that was scripted out for him to say, you know, you have the choice of being, I'm not going to say that. I'm not comfortable doing that. But back then, you know, for some reason, people were super comfortable. And that was like a laissez-faire, you know, they just kind of laid back with that kind of stuff. It wasn't like, you can't do that now, which I'm happy about, but I still like, that stuff is just really weird.
The level of comfort is something that I wonder about, that you'd made a comment on. And I don't know whether or not it's the level of comfort that people had, or it's along the lines of the strength of the voice of the people who did not have a voice.
Right.
So it's as you said a moment ago, Davison, it's this, Jim Cornette. He's you know, this white male who, in his perspective, that was not racist. That was not outlandish. It was something that had made people go, ooh, because the starvation side of things.
Jim's a fucking edgelord. Let's just say it.
In that sentiment, I mean, it's not that it wasn't racist then, or it wasn't vulgar then, or it wasn't crazy then. It was just the fact that those who have a voice, a stronger voice now, or at least have a platform in some respect to speak on now, I think are given the opportunity to be heard.
Yeah.
In context, then not so much.
Yeah.
Because you were a caricature of who you were. You were an animated version of who you are. And not only does wrestling hyperbolicize those individuals to make them larger than life, but also taking elements of racist, sexist perspectives, or xenophobic, or there's across the board.
Yeah.
Taking these ideas and then ramping those up to 11 because that's your shock value. It's along the same lines as cheap heat, making fun of a town that you're in just because you're in it, and that it's in the same caliber because it's such lowbrow humor. It's lowbrow commentary.
Right.
So I wouldn't say that even then or back then it wasn't vulgar to, and that's why I'm saying I'm not agreeing with all of their thought processes and saying, well, it was fine then, or oh, you didn't have a problem with it then. I remember somebody made a comment to me the other day is that they can't make fun of or they can't say certain things because maybe 8, 9, 10 years ago it wasn't racist or it wasn't vulgar. It
always was.
It always
We're just finally talking about it.
It's just individuals who may not have the strength of voice, or maybe the attention is now on those who did not have a voice, and that just gives them that platform or that precipice that they can then outright say those
and
things.
I've heard family...
Look at me. This isn't acceptable.
And I've heard family members say, I just don't understand why, these black people can say the N-word all day, but I can't say it because then I'm racist. And I've literally said, why would you ever want to say it to begin with?
Right. I'm not complaining that I can't dunk my head in a bucket of boiling water. Like, I don't want to.
Right. It's just like, I'm not a part of that culture, but I can have empathy for other people and other situations because you're dividing it up by, race, sexual orientation, and that just separates people. At the heart of every problem, that stuff is total shades of gray. It has nothing to do with it. We're all human beings. We all deal with the same thing.
Let me tack this on, though, and I kind of started touching on it the other week, but since we're actually on the topic, this is a discussion about the fried chicken, quote-unquote, joke.
Yeah.
No, I'm not a racist. Okay. Let's talk about WWE's track record right now with non-white gimmicks. So, does anybody remember Kai and Tai?
Yeah.
Chopping pee-pees with samurai swords.
Yeah, choppy your pee-pee.
That's
Okay.
Asian people in the world, according to WWE.
Right.
Indian characters, meaning country of India. We got Bollywood, or we have big evil people in turbans.
Yep.
We got our Mexican people literally carrying a piñata to the ring in 2019. We got a historical representation of black wrestlers as either comedy, ghetto, which is usually comedy, or scary, which is a combination of ghetto and scary. Those are your caricatures.
Yeah.
Now, with going back to Corny, he's always been a participant in that stuff. He's from the South. So, I mean, I remember him talking about the gangsters being in his fed for quite a long time. Smoky Mountain Wrestling. You don't even have to tell them to be heels. All they have to do is show up.
Right.
But that's because everybody's fucking racist.
Right, exactly.
Like, that's the part he seems to be like looking past. Let's not forget that he called Sonny Kiss a transvestite or whatever, like about 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't understand how a person could dress like that. They didn't even bother explaining it on the air why they're dressed that way. Because that's fucking Sonny Kiss and that's how he dresses, Jim.
Right. Who cares? Why are you so rattled by it?
Horrified. I'm waiting for it to happen. For Jim Ross, who I love so very much, I'm waiting for Nyla Rose to get called a fucking he on live TV. That's what I'm waiting for because people just aren't paying fucking attention to that shit.
Yeah. And I hope that's not the case.
No shit.
I would hope that he's a little bit more connected, and he seems like he really is.
Oh no, for sure. It just takes, you know what I mean?
It takes
mentality.
Right, absolutely.
Be an accident.
And I think that's something that I wonder on also, though. Is it aside from the deep-seated, subtle, baked-in racism that Corny carries, that he claims as part of his perspective and identity and the way in which he talks, and that's how his humor is or his comedy goes. But I guess it's like I'm not saying that there is a active or aggressive versus passive, nonchalant, and that there's a positive spin to either form of oppression or racism or whatever it may be. Yeah. But looking at Jim Ross versus Cornette, I would chew on that to say, with his comment the other night, Jim Ross, as he was on AEW, he made a comment along the lines of Freddie Mercury never looked so Oriental, Asian. I mean, like you saw him stumble, trip, and fall over his own comments because he heard his mouth say it. And
that's the difference between he and Jim.
But that's the difference between him and Jim. His intention, his goal, his commentary is not out of malice, but maybe it's the idea of lack of understanding or lack of comprehension or lack of growth.
I mean, they're old. They're from another time.
But is it rooted in lack of desire to grow with the times, motivate to the times, or understand the times, or is it in the sense of trying to get that heat?
Well, look at the way Power is set up. It looks like early 1980s NWA. Nothing about it looks any different. It looks like it's early 1980s territorial wrestling.
Yeah.
and everything that goes with it.
And that's why they wanted Cornette there so bad, because he was
Right.
that stamp of authenticity.
Yeah.
I just worry that, I guess, him and Jim Ross and Jim Cornette, I don't want them to be glommed into the same level of like racism
No.
that they would be.
Well, no, so let me
And
further
I'm not saying that
clarify.
for you, I'm
Yeah,
saying
no.
more so in the sense of more often than not, people will look, in for a penny, in for a pound, and the level of why they should just be this or why they should just be that.
Yeah.
And to characterize or claim as to why someone is bad. I guess it's the idea of, again, as I said a moment ago, passive versus active racism.
Right.
I'm not saying that either is okay in any way, shape, or form, but I find as though that if you are trying to become more or trying to grow or trying to figure out as to how you speak or how you carry or how you see the world because you're a evolving, developing individual just as everyone else is, rather than somebody who's making shit comments just to make shit comments. And don't get it twisted. I love Jim Cornette in a lot of different ways because
I
of...
know you do.
It's because of, aside from the fact of the encyclopedia knowledge of that man having all of wrestling, but in tandem with his perspective on things is interesting to me. But again, I'm not saying that I'm all right with a lot of what he says.
I would be, and honestly, I would be okay with Jim. The biggest hang-up I have with him is he digs his heels in. This is why I made that edgelord comment.
Yeah.
He tries to push the level. He does it on purpose. And I'm willing to say, I don't think he was trying to be overtly racist with that. I'm willing to give him a
Ross
shake.
or
No,
Cornette?
Cornette even with the chicken thing. He'll admit that he knows that's a stereotype. I'm willing to say, okay, maybe he really was just falling into this humor thing for a second. But his absolute refusal to address it with anything other than, well, they told me I got to apologize and I didn't make the jokes, but anyway, I guess I'll go ahead and apologize. If that's not the most backhanded bullshit you've ever heard.
Yeah.
So with him, I don't know that he was doing that to be whatever kind of way, but he's got a long history of going out of his way to push it right to the fucking edge and hold it there.
Yeah.
Now, Ross is older, and he's, it's going to happen. You got habits in your brain from life and other time. I do see him trying in lieu of, just who he's working with and where he's at. So I don't put them together, but...
And the outdated language. That's the other side of it. A part of the us moving forward as a people, as a whole, as an environment, or as any which way you want to put it, is the acknowledgement of how language creates and destroys, and then as such, evolving to become better at how you speak and how you carry and how you see things. I see Jim Ross, as you just said, he is older, but I think that his ability to grow with the times is something that which keeps him relevant. That's what I will say.
Yeah.
he doesn't
And-
refuse to do it.
And and I kind of look at this too as a broadcast. And we were talking about earlier about people in broadcast that I really idolize, and Jim Ross is up there as one of my all-time favorite commentators in general in sports entertainment. His ability to really create a memorable call is something that's not easy to come by, and it all goes back to Corey Graves digging into NXT's commentating team, which
Oh my
caused
God.
some real big issues. And I'm like, I'm sorry, has Corey Graves ever said anything that is memorable or impactful?
You know what sucks is when he was first coming up to the main shows, I was so excited because I did like his humor and his
Yeah.
edge. And I said to a bunch of people, he could very easily become the modern day Ventura on the mic. I think he's got the skill set. And I don't know if it went to his head. I mean, he's clearly already become a company guy.
Oh my
he'll
gosh.
just push any story.
Have you
but
noticed how he holds his hand? He makes like a little pyramid out of them. I mean that you're committed to the
You do
evil
the
side.
pyramid
Like,
hand.
He does that all
You
the time.
You pyramid hand. We see where your
you
lawyers
talking about
your
some
loyalty.
Illuminati Hova shit?
No.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, just even that, trashing your own teammate, basically. And that caused him to have a whole bunch of issues. And I'm
how
sorry,
is
man.
Mauro right now?
What's that?
How is Mauro? I mean,
He's healthy. He was actually working back at Bellator, I think, within a couple days.
okay.
He skipped NXT last week. I
Yeah.
heard he was going to be coming back for this new one. Yep. And for those who don't know, Mauro Ranallo is, in my opinion, the best announcer working in wrestling.
He's got that enthusiasm that really was, I don't know, he's bringing something new to the table. And
Yeah.
the fact that he's working for NXT makes the product even better.
He just juices it up.
Makes it fun to watch.
And he is wildly bipolar. I'm bipolar. He
Yeah.
is wildly bipolar. He goes into like psychosis when he's in his manic states.
Yeah.
There's a really great documentary on YouTube if you all haven't seen it. It's called The Bipolar Rock and Roller.
I heard about that, but I hadn't seen
Oh,
it.
it's great. You should totally watch it.
Okay.
But that's basically what happened. It's that time of year anyway. Spring and fall are tremendously hard for bipolar people.
Yeah.
Mauro is right at the far end of that. And sometimes all it takes is to be in the wrong mood and for somebody to say the wrong shit. But let's not forget, we got Mauro who takes a tremendous amount of pride in his work.
Yeah.
I think he kills it every time he's out there. I don't care
he's
if I hear Beth
fantastic.
Phoenix talking. I don't care.
Right.
And so Corey goes and says a couple times, well, it would be awfully nice if I could hear the other people talk. All I can imagine is that felt like this massive betrayal from somebody on his own team, like you said.
Yeah, well,
and
he
the
said-
flashbacks to JBL shit had to be happening too.
Right. And he straight up said, like, regardless of what you're seeing, or he's like, regardless of what you're hearing, there's apparently world-class commentating going on tonight. He just said something like really passive.
He said, you know, you may not know it, but there's a WWE Hall of Famer and a former Ring of Honor World Champion on the commentators table tonight.
Yeah.
I bet you they have something interesting to say.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the clearly we know what the insinuation.
Right.
And then later, some other person was just commenting to that comment and said something about they were bothered by all the Chicago hip hop references Mauro was making.
Yeah.
Like he does a lot of research and tries to keep things regional
Right,
and topical.
absolutely.
And Corey said, far, far too many. Now, Corey has said that some of that was trying to stay in keeping with all the brand versus brand stuff going on around. And maybe it was. I don't know. But Mauro is the wrong fucking dude unless you've cleared it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would never want anybody feeling like I'm taking a shot at them.
Yeah.
Because, well, one, I'm not that kind of person anyways. Two, if you're going to have witty banter going on back and forth, that's like, and I've been the butt of those jokes before.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when I was in a band years ago, one of the friends, and I'm friends with them now, but at the time, they dressed up like us to make fun of us. But we weren't in on the joke. It was a Halloween show. But we weren't in on the joke. So they didn't come up and be like, hey, look who I am. And I would have found that hilarious because 3 people have been me for Halloween before. And that's, that's pretty
I wasn't
going to
mention it, but I have plans for next year.
But it was a simple fact that you weren't in on the joke. So you weren't supposed to be a part of it. You
No,
were
then it
supposed
feels like
to...
you're being made fun of.
Well, absolutely. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That is exactly what it is. So
Laughing with versus laughing at.
yeah, and so it is a matter of, did he clear that with him? Did he know that was going to happen? And that's just one of those cases where I think that should constantly be communicated with, especially if you're doing the brand versus brand stuff.
Yeah.
And with how vocal people in WWE have been on social media and how little they care about what they're actually saying.
Well, he's already got documented bullying history from JBL. He already quit the company once.
Right.
For this almost, I mean, this isn't nearly on par with that, but it's like, I'm not going to get into the Oppression Olympics thing of comparing mental health to gender to sexuality to race, but it's still in the same mentality of this is 2019.
Yeah.
It's not that hard to just step over puddles. There aren't even that many of them.
Yeah.
Just don't fucking stomp
You just got to figure it out, man. I'm so sick of how am I supposed to explain this to my kids? They're your dumbass kids. I don't know. Figure it out. Figure it out, man. That's not my
If you're asking
not my
that question,
responsibility.
don't. Have somebody else do it because you're an idiot.
This is the world you live in. If you can't adapt with it, then see your way out of it. Don't go on social media. Don't fraternize with people online and piss them off and just be blatantly ignorant to the world around you. That's your problem, not mine. I have no issue with the people that are in this world that I'm living with side by side. They're really good people and there are pieces of trash, and those are the 2 kinds of people in this world. And other
Present
than that,
company excluded?
present company excluded, obviously.
We hang out in the gray area.
You guys are keen.
Neither of those apply to me. Huh? Don't label me. You know what I do have strong feelings about? AEW buying up WCW pay-per-view names. What the fuck is happening?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm wondering where they're going to take that, because it started with the Bash of the Beach thing, right?
No, it
Or did
started
it
a while ago.
or was it with War Games?
Not even War Games. I mean,
Really?
A while back, and I can't remember all of them, but Cody, before the process of AEW getting its legs underneath it, he had gone through a process in which he was just buying up names and buying up things, one of which was Bash at the Beach. And he said outright, no, I have no intention of using it. I don't want to have a pay-per-view. I just want the names that my father created to come home.
Intellectual properties, yeah.
Yep.
And that's something that wrestling fans on the Good Old Wrestling Fans page on Facebook have zero knowledge of, that how much influence Dusty Rhodes had on WCW.
WCW, baby.
and that he absolutely is deserving of that. That's his father's legacy.
He is on the Mount Rushmore, and if he's not, you don't know anything about wrestling.
Yeah,
I mean,
straight up.
He's right up. You know what? Let's just do that real quick. Let's compare ours. And since I said that, I got to stick to it. So we got Dusty Rhodes. I would throw Ric Flair on there as well. I would throw, as much as I hate to, I would have to put Hogan on there. Shit, there's only 4, aren't there? That leaves me with The Rock. There's Stone Cold. There's
You should pick The Rock. Ha 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 ha. Get it? Cause ha ha ha. Mountain.
And,
Ha ha ha.
and Will Ospreay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I said, somebody asked that question. And I said, because I'm a freaking troll, I said the gobbledygooker.
God damn it.
Okay. Skinner. Repo Man, and Lash LaRue. In all seriousness, though, it's very Mount Rushmore is so tough because you're talking about in terms of performance, character. I just think of in terms of being over, like completely over, and I don't think it really gets any bigger than Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, and I know arguably Ric Flair.
I was going to actually throw Cena in there for that mix.
Yeah, yes. I mean, Cena was the face of an entire, decade, basically. So just in terms of popularity, those guys are up there, But personally, it's, that's going to be a little bit more selective.
Yeah.
But Lash LaRue is a close
He had those
runner-up.
bomb-ass pork chop sideburns.
Pork chop facial hair. Wonderful.
Who's your top 4?
Oh goodness, I don't know if I could actually create that. If I was doing production based off of folks who have created and had and produced and all that jazz, I mean, Vince, Dusty, that guy with the thing with the name Bischoff, and
Was that Vince Russo or Vince McMahon?
Fuck you. Vince McMahon, sorry, don't even mention Russo. Russo can die in a fire.
Listen, bro.
It's
Here's the thing, bro. Okay, bro? All I can say, bro, is this. Bro.
I apologize.
What's sad about Russo is that he created the freaking Attitude Era. He was the guy who was coming up with all these insanely creative and
that's what he says. Yeah.
and pushy storylines, and then and he's coming up with all this stuff, and then he goes to WCW, and it's total train wreck mode. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, how much of that did you really come up with in WWE? Because
everybody always says, anybody who worked with him at the time will say, it's not that he didn't have a ton of ideas. Vince was the perfect filter for him.
That's what I've heard too.
He would knock 98% of the shit out of the air, and the other 2% might land. There was no fly swatter in WCW.
Right, exactly, which I think is why they had the boy band thing and David Arquette. And
3 count, yeah.
But it is interesting to see people shoot off against, Cody, and, just for wanting what his dad created to come back to him.
Yeah, I'm bummed that Starrcade didn't end up getting picked up or going along with it, and I was hoping that Halloween Havoc would be something that he would be able to pick up as well. I miss stages that allowed for just theme.
Absolutely.
I like this vibe. Make it spooky. Make me scared. Make me enjoy. That's what Hell in a Cell used to do to me. It's oh my god, this is. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago. That was the only means or the only path in order for a pair of wrestlers who have had such a hatred for one another. That's the only way that they can release their tension inside of a cage. And then after that, all right, sorry, we got to go our separate ways. We can't do anything after the fact because we have proven ourselves to be, made of metal inside of this
taken it to the absolute limit.
Exactly.
This is the most extreme match that you can have.
Exactly. But yeah, I would love, Starrcade would be fantastic, actually be something and do something. And it would be fantastic if we could have Halloween Havoc in the hands of those who created it, or at least the family and the dynasty of such. There's so much texture that can be created with changing your environment or changing the theme or allowing for people to become immersed in the story or in the... I still believe.
Yeah.
I say it every
it's real for me, damn it!
It's real for me!
And And that kind of like what you said kind of leads me into the next thing I wanted to talk about too, is when a couple of weeks ago Sami Zayn introduced the WWE Universe to the new Intercontinental title. Now when he busted that out, I was like, I really like that design. That's a really cool looking belt, and it perfectly fits WWE right now. Because, I mean, you know the water pouring out of the meme where the water's pouring out and the guy slaps a piece of tape on it? And the guy, it's basically water pouring out, and it represents a product that, it's like this duct tape that super seals. And the guy, I put WWF, the water pouring out of the container said, the need for creative and compelling content. And then he slaps a piece of duct tape on it. It says, new championship belt. and
I know what we'll do.
And for me, when they introduced the Intercontinental title, I was like, that's really freaking cool looking. I really like the new design. It perfectly emulates what it means to be Intercontinental Champion in this era, which is not much. Because
I love that build up.
Because let's look, take yourself back to the 80s in WWF. That Intercontinental title meant something. If somebody was wearing it, there was a really good reason that person was wearing it.
Yeah.
Without the language, I guess it would have said the world champion was usually the best sports entertainer.
Right.
The Intercontinental champion was the best wrestler.
Yes.
And
the
you
best
look
worker in the house.
Yeah.
Yes.
Especially if you look into the 80s, and I think back to, when they had, the Intercontinental champion, going back to Macho Man Randy Savage, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, eventually Ultimate Warrior. Then you had Bret the Hitman Hart, Mr. Perfect, Ravishing Rick Rude, Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon. All these guys.
I know. I'm watching you just lay out this.
Was that chronological?
Almost, yeah. Jeff Jarrett, and you had these guys who, when they wore the IC belt, and it was just the look of it, and the fact that it was on them, you believed that whether you liked them or not, they were totally deserving of that title, and they made a good Intercontinental Champion.
Yep.
And there was importance behind it because it meant you were the second guy, and there were times, like look back at SummerSlam '92. Many could argue that because it was Wembley Stadium, over 80,000, and Bret Hart dropped the title to British Bulldog, that was the British Bulldog's crowning moment. It was more Bret Hart's crowning moment because that was almost a passing of the torch, like, all right, I'm going to go get what I know I deserve.
You know what I hadn't thought of before? I was so used to Hogan as the world champion as a kid, and I just kind of took for granted, like, okay, this is obviously what wrestling is, a big, oily dude kind of beating up these other weirdos who don't appear to be Americans or something.
Right.
Well, so it didn't occur to me that there might be a skill level differential. And the way I've come to understand wrestling is it's usually the heels who do a lot of the directing during the match and who could kind of be considered to have more of a well-rounded skill set, as it were, like to do a lot of the work in the match. So the Monster Factory is what I heard it referred to for Hogan. They'd have to build somebody up, make them scary, develop that character, and then just feed them, and then do the next one, and do the next one. I'm thinking about the Intercontinental thing. It almost feels like it was kind of backwards to that, because they're trying to get somebody who's good at putting over a challenger.
Yeah.
Hart did that to put over the Bulldog.
Yeah.
And then that proved him to move up. And then his thing was he was the underdog champion, and he had all the monsters coming at him. Hogan was kind of supposed to be in that route, but Hogan was 6'7", 300 pounds.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, there was just something to that it feels to me like there was a shift at some point where it was important for the Intercontinental Champion to demonstrate that they can put over talent.
Yeah.
But then look good doing so. And then Hart doing that in Wembley.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to have to look back into that. They may have set the bar right there.
Yeah, and they even talked about there's a couple of Bret Hart documentaries where they talk about there was a couple of mistakes that they made in the match because the passions were so high and the bar was set so high and they were just under so much pressure, but they still pulled it off. They still had a phenomenal match. But that was Bret Hart's. That's why Bret Hart was always one of the best workers in the ring, because think about all the guys that Bret Hart wrestled. I mean, all shapes, sizes, everybody. He could have a good match. You go back to the King of the Ring. Bret Hart had a match with Razor Ramon. Phenomenal match. Razor made him look amazing. Then his second match, he went in against Mr. Perfect. who had already at this time already had beaten for the IC title at one point, and then in the finals went up against Bam Bam Bigelow, and all three matches were completely different. And it's a testament to how good Bret Hart was in the ring, and how good the other guys that he was working with were.
Yeah, super versatile.
When going back to the title belts, when you looked back at the IC Championship and the way they built it up, there was so much importance behind it because you really believed, like, wow, this might be the next top guy. This might be the next guy they put the belt on. Now there are so many belts, and the belts are just flying all over the place.
Yep.
That the importance of the Intercontinental title, it's just gone down in value. So
wasn't it on the pre-show? I mean, wasn't it? It's been on the pre-show several times.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. The value of that title
Yeah.
has gone down. A title isn't valuable because of what the name of it is. It's what it means, what it stands for.
You know what kills me? We hear it all the time. There are people who are like tremendously talented, but we see them leaving the company or even being let go because, quote, creative doesn't have anything for you, right? So think of it this way. Yeah, no shit. We have a world title. We have a universal title. We have a U.S. title. We have an intercontinental title. We have a cruiserweight title. We have 2 women's titles, and we have a women's tag team championship. That's 8.
And the NXT line and the UK
24-hour,
right?
24/7 title.
But with 24/7. So just on those main shows, because you don't really hear about a lack of planning on NXT. They do a tremendous job of using their talent. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So 2
I just
tag
get lost
titles
in the belts.
Yeah. So it's like 8 or 9.
Sorry.
But here's the thing. You have a show for 2 hours on TV. You usually have about, I don't know, 6 or 7 matches.
Yeah.
How hard is it to focus on your goddamn titles? Have a storyline around your Intercontinental title. Push it. Have a story around your world title. Push it. Do it for your fucking tag title.
Right.
Do it for your woman. That's going to take care of 80% of their problem. But they don't do it. They're just like, they let them turn into crap.
Yeah,
like you said.
And like I was watching and I discussed with you guys too. I sent you text messages about just watching pay-per-views like I think it was SummerSlam 99, and the fact that there were so many matches that had no belts involved that people were so enthusiastic about, like who Test was given pipe to. It was Stephanie McMahon. He was fighting Shane McMahon to stick it to his sister. And
his name was Test because he was getting checked for STIs around that time.
Oh my gosh! And the Mean Street Posse were there, but when Test won, and mind you, like the Stooges came out and they like eliminated the Posse from the picture. The crowd was so into this match.
Yeah.
You would have thought Test won the world title. It was unbelievable. The Rock, who has already been at the time a multiple-time world champion, was in a kiss my ass match with Billy Gunn. And the crowd was like so involved that like The Rock has to win this match. And T and I were talking on Wednesday about what is that more of a reflection of? Is it more of a reflection of the state of the world back then and WWE's reflection of it and what people cared about? Or is it because they were just better at telling stories back then, stories that people had fun getting into and were involved in?
That was me saying both. Both of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, think about it. So ECW was doing all that first in America, like we said. But if you listen to Heyman talking about ECW, he'll start talking about grunge.
Right.
You know what I mean? Grunge and punk rock. That's where his mentality started. And he saw it happening because he actually is kind of a cool guy. He knows these things are happening socially. So ECW was the first direct reflection of that. And then lo and behold, it blew up. And then here came WCW, WWE doing the same thing. So it was a direct reflection of the time and place.
Yeah.
Now, they certainly had, I mean, you can never deny the level of talent they were signing up at the time. Regardless of what they were doing, they were going to have a pretty decent product unless they really shit the bed.
Right.
But now, AEW is the company that's reflecting the times. WWE is refusing. They're doing the Cornette. They're digging their heels in again.
Yeah,
they're trying to ignore what's happening socially.
And Michael Hayes was actually the first person to implement entrance music. He was. They've said Michael Hayes. He's said multiple times. He's like, rock and roll and wrestling were just made for each other. And when he was in the Fabulous Freebirds in Texas, he was the first one to kind of go like, I want to come out to this song. And everybody, even the Von Erichs, were like, huh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
You know, because it gets the music hits and everybody gets involved. So again, you had these guys who were shaping the way for what wrestling would become. And even back then, don't get me wrong though, like that's the thing. There was a match, I can't remember what pay-per-view, but it was Midian versus Big Boss Man. And the crowd was giving him the business.
I hope so.
Business was booming. Business was giving them the business. For real. Boring.
They were swimming in
This
business.
match sucks. This match sucks. And they were like, God damn it, we have to take this 12 minutes. And by 4 minutes, the crowd was unhappy.
Wow.
So it was a long 8 minutes that they had. And, you know, props to them for having to, you know, they got to go out there and do a job. So it's not like the audience back then was like, oh, yeah, we love everything. They still voiced their opinion. But even, like I said, you know, in summation, you take a look at what it used to mean back then, and it's just the new IC title is great. It looks awesome. It perfectly fits the attitude that WWE is at right now. I think it's an awesome design. It looks super cool. It will never, ever come close to meaning as much or looking as cool as the original Intercontinental title.
And I think that that's what's something that is a concern, is the fact that they've got this idea that they can, as you said a moment ago, throw some tape on it and call it good and move forward, which is great, wonderful, and dandy, but they have to change the message, the ethos, the carry in which you have that title, you have that actual, the belt, and what that stands for, the prestige that goes along with it. I'm a firm believer of the idea that we need to cut these belts in half. I mean, we should have a universal title across brands.
Oh, period.
We should have a tag team set across brands. Like we need to whittle these down and showcase the champions that they have and those who they need to keep. And I would also genuinely would love, if the Intercontinental was something that could go across brands, not just brands in the AE or the WWE realm, but also. Let's take that to New Japan Pro Wrestling. Ooh. Let's take this to AEW. Let's take this to... Because what am I? I'm a champion across continents, across the playing field. I can actually take this fight to you wherever you are and maintain that.
Yeah.
And that's something that I find most interesting about the way that New Japan Pro Wrestling handles a lot of their stuff. Is because they have a handful of belts. They've got the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. They've got the IWGP Intercontinental. They have the IWGP Junior, and they have the IWGP North American, and then the tag teams. They've got 5.
Yep.
Now, yes,
they get junior and heavy tags.
Right. Yeah. And then as such, even though that those are that brand is a dramatically smaller group than and pool of a roster in comparison to WWE.
Oh, yeah.
But you are, regardless of whether or not the title is on the line or the championship is on the line, you are still invested in those other matches because that's the trajectory or the lineup that you are going to be aiming for later on down the line. Yeah. When you've got the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion, that is somebody that is in line to become the IWGP Champion at some point in time. That's how the Intercontinental used to be, as you said a little bit ago.
Yeah.
The Intercontinental used to mean that you need to, and as Davison had said a moment ago, or Mark, you had said a moment ago, is the idea of getting someone over because you have the ability to let the title go as a way for you to climb that next step.
Yeah.
Now, I know that that's a large leap that I'm going to be making right now, but I'm going to say it. It's, in comparison, I would say, as if someone in the presidential line was to receive or to become into that line of power. So, for example, not talking about now, but just talking about if there was a situation in which there was a government official who decided or needed to step down, and then as such, the next person in line would have to renounce their standing to then gain that next step. So, the correlation that I would make, not talking about references now, not talking about current politics, I'm going to talk about the show The West Wing. Great show. Love it. Very much enjoy it. There was a point in time in which the guy from Roseanne, whose name escapes me at this point in time...
John Goodman?
There we go. He was a staunch Republican. I guess he was Speaker of the House, so he was third in line for the presidency. Yeah. The second in command was not able to take over for President Bartlett, who was played by Martin Sheen. Martin Sheen needed to step down in a means of allowing for the Speaker of the House to take over when he was not capable of doing his job or not able to fulfill the role of the president at that time. Yeah. Even though he was still considered quote-unquote president, he had to renounce his position as president and then let John Goodman step in, and he had to let go of Speaker of the House, would have to rerun again, and then he moved into that line of power.
It's like when Ultimate Warrior was the Intercontinental Champ, won the world title, and then relinquished the Intercontinental belt.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like the idea of the fact that not in the sense of you can only hold one title. You should be able to hold as many titles as you can have if you can defend them.
Yeah.
But they should be you should be able to give job to someone to promote and push them for the betterment of the company and to showcase your ability to still get over, still be something, still be a fighting champ.
Without a belt.
It could be argued, and I know this would be a heavily debatable topic, but like I said, it goes back to title value. Hulk Hogan in the 80s as world champion means money.
Oh,
yeah, butts and seats.
Means money. It is arguably the second most valuable title in terms of what and this negates audience size. You have to in this sense, but what it means to your consumer, as small or as big as it is, probably the second most valuable title I've ever seen is Rob Van Dam as television champion for almost 2 years.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you're saying they built up the mystique of it because they've held it for so long, and the defense was such like a...
And because of the quality of matches that Rob Van Dam was going out every single week and having these... That's why they called him Mr. Pay-Per-View, because every match he was doing had pay-per-view status to it.
Whether you're on TV or not, it was like...
And that's why when he relinquished the TV title, this is when they were with TNN, he basically told him, the guy he was relinquishing the title to, like, good luck finding somebody who's going to go out and give the caliber performances that I go out every week and perform as television champion. They weren't going to allow him to drop the belt because, and at the time...
There's no follow-up.
There really is no follow-up. And he's even said before, he's like, that title almost rivaled the world title in terms of value because of what I was bringing to the table.
And tied to what you just said, bringing to the table. More often than not, the Vince has this mentality or this idea that if you slap a belt on someone, that makes them a star. Yep. And I don't agree or understand the logic behind it, because you can't just slap a cape on somebody and call him Superman and then push him off a goddamn building.
Right.
They're not going to fucking fly.
David Arquette would still be something.
Right.
Vince Russo. So it's something that I think we need to... I think that the workhorse mentality is something that I've not been able to let go. As you said a little bit ago, Davison, is that there's these people who are strong in their craft, strong in the wrestling side versus the entertainment side. And, I mean, part of that mindset and that lineage, I would say, who's brought it to the table? UK. The UK Championship is something that I holds a candle to the idea that what a title should be and what the Intercontinental used to be.
Yeah.
It was something that you brought to the table, all this strength, all this power, all this mythos that makes me believe Pete Dunne, greatest goddamn champion.
Oh my God.
And when are we gonna just call it? When don't we just open it up and just be realistic here? NXT, and this is just my opinion, should have no more involvement with WWE in terms of crossing over brands.
Amen, brother.
I do not want any more people. We need to stop treating NXT like it's some farm system.
I wish I would have recorded. I should have recorded this shit, but like a couple months ago, when they announced NXT was going to go to USA, I said to my friend, and I'm not the only person who said this, but I was like, the ratings are going to suck, and you're going to see main event people coming over right away from the mainstream shows, and it's going to take spots from the other people. And you're going to see mutiny in NXT. And everything happened. And I just recently saw a thing on Wrestle Talk. NXT performers angry that they're losing their spots to me. Like, oh, what do you know?
Oh, gee. Mm-hmm. Who saw that coming?
Where's the call?
Everybody. And that's what we were kind of talking about.
They're moving to Sunday, I heard.
Maybe,
I've heard that they're moving NXT to Sunday because they can't compete on Wednesday. Because of how they're treating the material.
I'm just remembering...
And the roster.
I'm remembering Sunday Night Heat and every other attempt they ever made. Oh my gosh. Sunday's a death knell for wrestling.
Well, Sunday Night Heat, right before you have a pay-per-view, is now going to... Because that's what they used to also do. They would have it as the pre-show.
No.
So, because I remember that being a big thing. It's like, if you watch the pre-show... Sunday Night Heat, you would have seen so-and-so doing such and such. Well, now it's all going to be a preamble so that they're going to have NXT as Sunday Night Heat before we've got a pay-per-view, and then you're going to have WWE stars from Raw and SmackDown showing up on NXT and crossing and pissing people off.
See, that's what pisses me off about it, because we were talking about this the other day. I was like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. You have some of the best talent in, Finn Balor, and just coming off recently, like Finn Balor, Aleister Black, Ricochet, and you bring them into WWE, and it's like, yay, you finally made it. And then it's like, well, either two things are going to happen. You're going to get Asuka, where you're going to just be getting the world, you're going to get the title thrown at you, and then once you're out of the picture, once you lose it, you're out of the picture. Completely. And we're going to stick you in the tag team. Or you get Ricocheted, where you've got the biggest momentum, Aleister Black, you got the biggest momentum coming in, and you're stagnant, and you're not on the pay-per-view.
They refuse. You know what?
And it's like, what? Why did you bring them up? Why do?
That's the thing, is they're calling it a bring up. That's the other side of it.
I have an answer, I think. And we're going to keep this conversation going, but I want this to be a new element in it. We've said before, why do they keep ignoring what the audience wants to see? It's like they insist on pushing their thing. And we've all heard some reference to Vince saying, we're making movies here. Like, that's his idea, right? It finally clicked in my head. When you make a movie, you make a thing for everybody else to watch, and they just watch it. When you do wrestling, you put a thing out there, and people participate with it.
Yeah.
If he's making movies, they're going to be pissed that why aren't these people liking what we just presented to them in our movie? Mm-hmm. That fits kind of with what they've said about things. They're genuinely confused that people won't accept these people. Mm-hmm. That's because I think in their mind, they're presenting this whole big cohesive movie project or something, which sucks, by the way.
Yeah.
That just makes some kind of sense to me.
I can understand that. And I would also say, to asterisk that, is he sees it as a fad. He sees not the movie making process. He sees his perspective is long term, but he has short term fixes. Mm-hmm. And it's with this idea of, we will be malleable to this new generation of new wrestling fans. Well, they're just going to have to either shit or get off the pot. And that's a horrible mentality, because he sees all of us as phase or fad perspectives, and he doesn't even want us to be a part of the mix in the first place if we can't hang with his product.
He holds wrestling fans in disdain. I mean, he won't even allow people to use the word. I heard he finally softened. He's allowing people to use the word wrestler again.
Really? But not sports entertainer?
But a lot of people don't realize that is actual policy. He would not allow people to use the word in front of or behind the curtain. You don't say wrestler.
Sports entertainer. And that's part of the legal battle, I think, that he had gone through. I think that's not, variety of instances, but a part of that is the idea of the legal battle that he went through, and then also he likes to have quality control in his mind at what he considers quality, and then also the other side of that, he likes to have control. Yeah. So he will tweak, alter, modify, and have a grapple on every single person who is on commentary and every word that is said, because he is in the ear of every single person barking out orders to try and control and contain the situation. And then, as you said a moment ago, it's the idea of movies. So he has a goal, as I said, long-term plan, long-term perspective with short-term fixes. This isn't working. Let's get a new person. Where do we get him from? Let's get him from the NXT roster. Let's bring him up. Let's call him up. Let's say that this is a big deal. Let's say that this is big news. Look at all that beef. And then you find yourself in a situation with him, particularly 2 months later, I'm tired of this. What's Ricochet doing? Let's add a new sound to him walking out. Let's put him in a tag team with Aleister Black. Let's make this... Fucking let them do their own goddamn thing.
Well, and like Mark said, though, it's almost like NXT was like taking those old school cars and like revving them up on the floor, get those wheels spinning real fast, and just getting it ready to go. You should just put it on the fucking ground and let it buzz into the big show, because it already proved that it works.
Just let it be its own brand. Let it be its own brand.
But he won't. It's just the most backwards business. I know we've been talking about this particular point for weeks. But
we also have to remember, too, that in 20 years we won't be having this conversation. Mainly because we're just going to be on the biggest of networks ever doing video. And we'll just be so busy in our Lambos.
I mean, WWE is hiring a podcasting.
Yeah, right? They love us. You guys suck. You're hired.
I want to work with Corey Graves.
But regardless, this is all Vince's control. Mm-hmm. Once... that control is relinquished to Triple H. We've seen what he's done with NXT.
I'm so worried. I don't think that's going to go to Triple H.
Really? Where do you think it'll go to Stephanie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
After seeing how things have been going and the way that he keeps pulling things away from him.
You mean with giving the producers those shows? Okay, I'm glad you just said that.
Yeah,
so
sorry, I'm nodding, people.
So there was some conjecture that when Raw when SmackDown, so many changes lately, moved to Fridays, He put a new executive director in charge of that, which was Eric Bischoff. He then put Heyman in charge of Monday Night Raw at about the same time because Vince was going to take his attention and stick it back in the XFL. Well, so a lot of people,
2020, and XFL.
But so a lot of people were like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Hunter just got the shaft. And that's what you were just kind of referencing.
Right.
I've now heard a bunch of people say no. They didn't really expect, they didn't want to put all their eggs in the basket because they were concerned that there might be some issues like they're having now. This may have actually been a protect Hunter more for the future thing.
And I'm curious about that because, like I said, it seems like he's got to have faith in Hunter. Hunter understands the business. I think there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that we didn't see with Triple H. But when NXT came out, and it even took me a while to warm up to it because, I mean, I was just so out of wrestling. I was so uninterested in everything that I'd been doing that going back, pardon me, I was working in Detroit, and my buddy Chris was like, dude, did you see that NXT match? The Kevin Owens match? And I'm like, no. And he's like, dude, watch it. And this was at a time where I was like, yeah, I liked wrestling. Like, we were kind of bonding. I was like, yeah, I liked wrestling. I haven't watched it in forever. And it was when Kevin Owens won the world title by way of knockout. And
from Sami Zayn?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that changed.
Sami Zayn.
Yeah, and that changed my mind completely about what was going on in NXT because I was like, wow, I don't think I've seen anything that creative in terms of a finish where somebody just power bombs dude over and over and over again and the ref calls it and he's like, it's done. He's won. Almost like a boxing, like an ultimate fighting thing. Without getting into the gruesomeness of it. And it was just like, what a way to end a match.
Yep.
It was genius. And I was like, oh, that's not Vince. That can't be Vince.
You know, let's do that because all three of us already know this, but this is like the nuance of ultra wrestling nerddom. So when you have that finish where you take a beloved underdog babyface, which was Sami Zayn, and you have a new brute of a heel you're trying to introduce as this unstoppable force, the perfect fucking finish is a knockout because it makes your heel look like a monster. Yep. It makes you even more sympathetic to your face.
Yeah.
But the face never got pinned.
He never lost in a way.
It's a WrestleMania 13 Bret Hart versus Stone Cold.
Boom, boom, boom.
Stone Cold doesn't tap out. He passes out in a pool of his own blood. People are happy because Bret Hart won. Yep. People are like, Austin's a freaking badass because he never tapped out.
Yep. Exactly.
You know, it's just good storytelling.
It's easy. I mean,
It was. It was very easy for a long time because it wasn't easy.
Right.
But as soon as I'm sorry to interrupt, but as soon as it stopped being not so easy, that's when I just slowly was finding my way out of it.
I'm wondering as to because chasing tail. There's this idea that there's going to be a big overarching brand that NXT is doing. From what I've been hearing, NXT not only is going to be NXT America in Florida, where they are at Sunrise Kingdom,
Orlando,
the Full Sail University.
Full Sail, there you go.
So there's that. There's also NXT UK. There's talk of NXT Japan. There's talk of NXT. Did they?
Did you hear about that?
I heard that they were trying to buy a company, but I think
it was a women's fed.
That women's fed ended up getting picked up by New Japan.
And I loved it because it was like, again, we're speaking shorthand here. WWE was attempting to buy some regional territories in Japan, and obviously NJPW is rooted so deeply; they're never going away. It's like WWE in America.
Yeah.
But so I love the fact that Vince has been able to just kind of put his finger down and have business flock to it. This time they were like, hey, let's get into Japan. And some other Japanese federations were like, maybe we'll just go ahead and buy those. Like, fuck you, get out of here.
Right, exactly.
There's still talk. Yeah. There's still talk of that idea. And that's what makes me wonder, particularly, is to being like, for Vince to... I think that Shawn Michaels has given an endorsement of NXT that has allowed for Triple H to get a lot more attention and credence and respect from Vince McMahon. I'm not saying it's not well earned. Triple H, I trust, love, and appreciate for a lot of reasons. And I genuinely think that man has a head for talent and has a head for wrestling and has a head for story making. And I'm very interested in seeing what he can create. But I am concerned that Vince is seeing the idea or the desire to pass it down to family to supersede the quality of product. His desire to keep it in the name of his family versus the ability to make something be worth something.
That's really interesting because people will tell you he has zero life outside of WWE.
Oh, yeah.
They say he eats, lifts weights, and just talks about and watches his own product. It's not even like the rest of wrestling. That's why he's always so surprised by these things happening. But, I mean, he's got an ego the size of Texas. So you would think that he would want that product to always, be his like forever statue showing his virility or whatever.
But maybe it's the idea of the family dynasty because he's taken over from his father and made it into a conglomerate or a company that has nothing to compete with anything.
That would suggest that he doesn't have faith in Triple H and Stephanie long term. Sorry.
You just blew my fucking mind. And like I said, it's
just stop. And I mean, I would unfortunately put more stock in the faith that he would then in turn pass it down to his son, Shane O'Mac, and Stephanie to have a hand and control in, rather than someone who is not of his lineage and not somebody who would bring to the table a solid quality product. And I feel that, he's got faith in Triple H to find and bring talent to the table, but not to steer the ship.
And that's fascinating because everybody who watches those products, who knows anything about wrestling, will tell you without hesitating that NXT is the better product all the way around. Vince is the only one who still thinks his thing is the best.
Well, let's take a look.
So he thinks NXT sucks because his thing.
Well, let's take a look at the recent pay-per-views. Takeover. I was a little bit late to the party on Takeover. I missed out on it. I finally watched all of Takeover because I watched Survivor Series live, and I only pieced a couple of matches with Takeover. It's no competition. And you know what? I watched Survivor Series, and they opened it up with, was it the all-female Survivor Series matchup, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I liked it. I thought that was a really good match. I think the all-men Survivor Series match was pretty decent as well.
Keith Lee.
Keith Lee is obviously one of the most over guys right now, hands down. But,
you know, throw that child into the audience.
You talking about the NXT World Champion?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Cole. Was that not?
Adam Cole runs down. Boom.
I mean, I haven't really looked into it.
Train.
I've just seen the GIF about 100 times when blasting him and he just flies through the air. Did he land on a bunch of plants or what did he land on?
I want to say that it was a bunch of plants because there was this dude in the audience who was just like, "Oh my God, my life is over," and just fell out. But I mean, I'm sitting front row. I paid my money.
He flew like 10 feet.
Oh yeah, that grown child flew into the audience.
Keith Lee played in the NFL, did he not? Or at least college football. So he's just like a 350-pound dude doing tackle practice against a 165-pound guy.
Right, no joke.
Child. He threw that child.
Basically.
Show some respect to the NXT World Champion.
I'm sorry. I will not say that to your face, child.
Or not.
But you can catch these words on the crucial inner circle.
So you were saying the women's match was great, the men's match was pretty good?
I liked both the classic Survivor Series matches. I thought they were solid. I really enjoyed the matchup between the Intercontinental Champion, the triple threat match.
My boy Roddy. Remember I was talking about Roderick from my tag team that I loved?
Yeah, absolutely.
There he is, US
That
champion
was
from
a
NXT.
really cool match. But just overall, I don't know, the whole thing with like Rey Mysterio and Brock Lesnar, there's just no interest there.
No.
And
no, none.
I
I forgot about that.
Right. It's just there's just zero interest in terms of like really Brock Lesnar. And I hate to say it, but it's tough when you go from, there was way more interest in Brock Lesnar when he was just a former football player and a professional wrestler. When you cross over to the world to Ultimate Fighting and you have the success that Brock Lesnar had where he became champion, that means he's got what it takes to be an Ultimate Fighter. Now you take him out of that and he goes back into wrestling. How are you logically supposed to beat somebody like that?
Well, see, and that's
logic.
So, logic to the win, wrestling.
Right.
I would say that I find with Brock Lesnar, who I don't particularly love or admire or look to, but I will say get a beard again. I will also say that with him being who he is and all of the way in which he handles wrestling, I feel like he looks at it also in the same eyes as Vince looks at his fans.
Right.
He looks at it at a level with a level of disdain, a disappreciation of the thing that made part of his life and pays part of his bills. And honestly, jumping topics, I think Goldberg's part of that same adventure. I think
Thank you.
as much as I love the 180 streak that man had, I find that he also looks at us as just peons or not worth his time. And I think Kevin Nash also. I would also say that, I mean, for Brock Lesnar, to me, how I would find him to become somebody that I could root for is if he just got beat on a technical level. Not like what was his name? That not Seth Rollins and stomping him and almost and being the Beast Slayer. There was maybe even Finn Balor. That's who it was.
Ooh, that was
Light
so
bulb.
good.
Yes, I was sitting here thinking, like, who's the cat that ended up... That was a solid thing. It's because he just kept going. He was enduring. He was going at it.
Right.
He just kept beating down or chopping that tree down.
He had 3 of those matches back to back to back. I don't remember how much time it was, but it was Finn, it was AJ, and then it was Daniel Bryan.
Daniel Bryan, that was the other.
Bam.
Yeah. And that's the thing that, to me, would be a solid quality champion. Someone that has looked at that man and said, I can take you down or take you on and still rise because you have the heart to beat. And that's something that I was worried and missing when it came down to him beating John Cena years ago, is that I was like, man, if John Cena has the heart and had the heart, he would be able to beat him. But he didn't, because he got thrown like a child around the room.
German suplexes, 80 of them. That's not wrestling. That's repetitive beatdowns. It's not storytelling.
Now, I enjoyed that match, but
Right, exactly.
I like seeing Cena get that shit kicked out of him finally.
For real.
But I agree with that.
Sorry, Cena. Appreciate
Cena.
everything you do, including getting your ass kicked.
You know what's
by
funny
Lesnar.
about this, though? That became the model for... Everybody talks about it, Suplex City, right?
Yeah.
Does anybody remember that match between Big Bad Booty Daddy Scott Steiner and Triple H? When Steiner came in and they did the arm wrestling thing.
Oh, my God.
And they did a bodybuilding thing. They were like competing.
Yeah.
That match consisted of Steiner giving him like 12 overhead suplexes. And the place came apart booing them the whole time.
Yeah.
And Steiner's push ended immediately because somebody backstage said it was the worst match they ever saw.
Yeah.
Fast forward 12 years, and it's all Lesnar's been doing for 3 years, and people are eating it up like ice cream.
Right, exactly. Because he's giving away that attitude like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I don't care.
And that's disheartening to fans who are appreciative of the product or the storyline. I would root for Brock Lesnar if he got his ass handed to him on a regular basis, because he became endeared to the fans, in which he's like this striving to become, trying to regain his glory as a professional wrestler. Because
he used to wrestle. That match he had with Kurt Angle was a great match.
He was a wrestler.
Fantastic. Oh, I mean, as a pro wrestler, he's wonderful. He used to have amazing matches. Yeah.
He doesn't do that anymore. Now he's like, I'm the ultimate fighting champion who doesn't give a shit, and I'm gonna just beat you up and beat you down, and that's my style now.
Yeah.
And I think,
it's just like, dude, you've been a wrestler for years. Like, wrestle a little bit. Have some real matches.
I would also say that that's tied to the way in which, again, how they look at creative. If you can be successful in the UFC, then you're definitely going to be successful in the WWE. And that is extremely unfortunate, because you're saying a product that it would be watched in rival to you is better than because they are ultimate fighting champions, but then they come to you and now they're sports entertainers, but they're supposed to be better in all the ways of a wrestling than somebody else.
Look at the Blood Money 3 poster. You had a boxer, 2 Ultimate Fighting Champions, and Braun Strowman on the poster.
Yep.
I was like, that's not wrestling.
Nope.
I was like, that is not wrestling. I was like, you've booked these monsters, and yet everybody else is getting buried.
You know what's funny, too, is basically the model is bring in this person from outside the company.
Ronda Rousey.
Yep. And Ronda eventually turned into the heel who does the exact same thing that Lesnar does, which is shit talk the product as fake, right? And I'm above all this. Those lines are being approved by people within the company. Now they're burying their own company. For decades, the whole thing was protect the business, protect the business, protect the business. That's why Cornette's been so freaked out about Omega and the Bucks for all this time, because he's convinced they've given up the business because of the way they've performed. And all of it.
Peering behind the curtain isn't a problem, but when you destroy what is behind the curtain to say that it has no strength, or it has no power, or it has no ability to be something of strength or grandeur, then you're taking away from what we all have committed to believing.
You strung us along all this time, made us believe in your product. And now you're going to bring people in from outside of the product, and the storyline is going to be them shitting on the product. And they're going to continue to beat people from the product, proving themselves right. And then he's going to get mad at people for not getting over.
And look at what SmackDown and Raw are doing to NXT.
Look back at when the NWO first formed. Remember when the Outsiders first came to Nitro?
Oh, yeah.
They beat the crap out of the entire roster. They had security surrounding the ring, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash with baseball bats. They had basically just destroyed the entire roster. And even people within WCW saying, look at what you guys just did. Yeah. You had two guys who just came from WWF who ran over your entire roster and had security surrounding them. What does that say about their product versus ours? Mm-hmm. And even though they were a part of WCW, everyone knew them because they were part of WWF. And I can't remember who said it exactly. It may have, I can't remember who said it. It may have Kevin Sullivan or somebody had said, like, look at what, you just had these two guys from WWF destroy everybody. Yep. Like, look at what that says about our product.
Yeah.
Like, that's embarrassing. Like,
here's what it says. This is where the big boys play. Look at the adjective.
Yeah, adjective.
Play.
Yeah,
I don't play with grammar.
They edit that out now. Yeah, they edit that out now. In certain,
they sure do. They surely do.
I'm interested. Yeah, I keep chewing on the idea.
Look at the hyperbole.
I have never stopped laughing about that. Like, I'm not these grammar Nazi people, but like Nash has always kind of presented himself as like the cool intellectual wrestler. Yeah. I just love that he's the one who said that shit. But anyway,
I am very interested to see what ends up shaking out with the rest of Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. Well, okay, take away. I'm not super interested. I am saying that I am interested in,
yeah,
because as we have kept saying, if you shit on your product with people who are on your roster, it is going to take away from the ability for those that are fans to become invested or become interested. Yep. If you have Corey Graves shit-talking NXT commentary, and if you have Raw or SmackDown folks shit-talking or downtrodden, NXT is calling it a call-up or as a place of a feeder system.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether or not you're competing in a Survivor Series mentality and against brand versus brand versus brand, I understand the certain level of competition that goes along with that, and that the level of, you against me, Vikings, Green Bay, blah, blah. I understand that. I can get behind that. I can get behind the idea of hyping up people to make your fans, to become more of your fan because you're going against a rival. But when you attack the system to take away from what it actually is, or even... as I keep saying, I still believe it's real to me. If you keep poking at that, then it takes away from my ability to have faith that the product is taking it seriously. I don't know how else to say it without sounding funny. Taking it seriously. And I know it's scripted, and I know it's got moments, but at the same time, take your shit seriously.
You're doing yourself a disservice.
You're doing yourself a disservice
It's designed to have you suspend your own disbelief, but the more and more they do that, it just keeps making it harder and harder and harder and harder to do it. Yeah. And I think, and then tied to that, and I'll repeat this, and I'll let it be. Stop grabbing fuckers from UFC, boxing, whatever it may be, and then claiming that they automatically get a pass to be better than what's currently on the TV. Because there's this idea that if you are outside of this world and you are a sports official in some capacity or sports person in some capacity, then you're better than our entertainers or our athletes. That doesn't make any damn sense. You might as well fucking grab a football player and just automatically promote them to that next level, as you have been doing with whoever this Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury. Yeah. Fuck him. Thank you.
I do not like this idea that you, just because you're exceptional in a field that is comparable, then that means that you're better than. It doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Michael Jordan.
Here's what kills me.
Baseball. Yeah.
You know?
They paid that dude millions, and I don't know how many.
13
million for that show?
$13 million?
If somebody from outside of wrestling... If somebody from outside of wrestling won't come in and do the job for a 6'8", 400-pound man for $13 million, fuck you Let me find somebody I can give $1 million to who will lay down and do it.
As you just said, a job.
It's a job.
It's a job.
Do the job.
Let me just find out. Let me just find out exactly.
But also the idea of like, because you have these people who are coming in from other arenas, UFC, boxing or whatnot, MMA. And again, I respect those sports. I love watching them. They're wonderful to me. But you bring them into WWE and you're allowing them to say it's fake.
Right. I was wrong.
Say it's fake to Benoit. Say it's fake to Dean Malenko. Say it's fake.
Don't say it to Benoit.
Don't. He'll kill you.
There's Benoit's out there, and they'll kill you.
But
Continue. Sorry.
I should have never said it.
But there are people like Ming. What was that guy that we were talking about a couple weeks ago that would eat your face? Haku.
Yeah.
Say it's fake to Haku.
Right. Feel every piece of the chopping. And I was wrong. The Gypsy King will not earn $13 million from that bout.
Okay.
$12 million.
Oh,
My
fuck
bad.
it.
My bad, dog.
Michael Jordan switched to baseball and he missed the ball for a couple of years because he's not a baseball player. If you put a wrestler on a football field, they're going to leave in a body bag. You can't put another thing into wrestling and say, "Oh, well, we're the only one that loses to outsiders."
And like
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and like you said, it makes it devalues everybody who has worked their ass off to get there.
It's in the same level of a celebrity. I would say that it's in the same level of celebrity because you're taking you're putting a fish out of water scenario. And I hate to, and I'm not trying to sound funny, but it's in the comparable level of Tyson Fury and David Arquette are on the same page to me because they don't know the rules. They don't know the law. They don't know the way in which things work. Put them against Daniel Bryanson and say, go to town. Bryan Danielson, whatever the man's name is. But I like him and love him. But if you were to take a man who can take chops until he is blistered in the chest, and you put them against somebody that, is an ultimate fighter, but in the arena, in the world in which you are fighting, you're fighting in sports entertainment, you're fighting in wrestling, you're fighting against somebody who knows what's up. I guess checkers and chess. And maybe that's the wrong parallel, but I'm saying you're taking somebody who may have the same board to play on, but they don't know the rules and the way in which things work. And they should be schooled fucking accordingly. Braun Strowman should run through these people.
Yeah.
Even though he may not be the best technical athlete out there, he should be able to run through these people because of the way in which he's grown as an athlete and in sports entertainment, wrestling.
But he'll still take those L's.
But he'll still take those L's because they find that there is another product out there that's superior to theirs because they're trying to get that product and that person over. Wait until XFL 2020. Wait until we've got some non-name motherfuckers showing up from XFL into the world of WWE as a way to try and get the XFL over try and make it as though that these people are something to pay attention to.
I never thought of that.
And I know why.
Wait until they're on NXT.
I know why Vince is doing it, but I think the XFL, and this is another topic for another time, I think, to really get into it. I understand why Vince is doing XFL, but I think it's doomed again because what he's doing and why he's doing it, I totally get it. I know why he's doing it. And the reason I think he's doing it is because he's playing off of hot button issues. People getting worked up over Colin Kaepernick. People getting worked up over...
When did that happen, though? I'm not saying that that's something to overlook, but I'm saying if you decide to throw a party... 5 years after someone said this party sucks, that doesn't mean that you actually are the savior of said party.
Not necessarily that, but more along the lines of how NFL fans are really getting sick of all the rules and all the little things and
we can't hit people like we used to.
And the referees and how it's played off. And I think McMahon is changing that, and he wants to create a product that's more entertaining to the football fan. And I don't know. We're just going to have to see it played out. Because I remember the original XFL, and it was god-awful.
It was god-awful. I was hoping that would turn out to be like NFL Blitz. That's what I was hoping. I was hoping somebody get, suplexed in the middle of the ring or in the middle of the field, and I'm like, yeah, that's a fumble. I'd love that, but
it's going to be a different product. It's going to be
sports
a different
entertainment
kind of football, and it's going to take a while for that to even succeed if it's going to, which I just don't. I think it plays off of people's anger towards the NFL.
Yeah.
But the NFL is like literally, it's a $1 trillion
In that regard, Vince is Tony Khan, and he's taking on the WWE, and he needs to listen to his own advice. Can I give a quick shout out?
Yeah.
When we're talking about celebrities to come in and do the job correctly, I'm going to make a bracelet that says WWPRD. What would Pete Rose do?
Oh my God.
Pete Rose did the GAOB a couple years in a row.
Yeah.
That's what people need to do. Come in, take a choke slam, go to sleep.
Didn't Seth Green do the same thing, or what was that guy? There was a cat that ended up getting speared by somebody or knocked out or somebody, but he just wouldn't lay down because he didn't know the rules, and they just kept getting his ass.
Oh, it was Steve-O.
Steve-O!
Oh,
Yeah.
He didn't know he was supposed to just lay there.
Spanish God. I mean, sorry, different person. Different person.
Kind of the same person. I think he was already concussed, so he was like out of it.
Yeah, he didn't know. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But so anyway.
Well, I want to get into a topic that we're kind of thinking of.
Pause. Fiend title sucks.
Fiend title sucks, yeah.
Then why does it cost $6,500 for a replica?
Because
they wanna
it's
see if he
made
gets
from
over.
a real fiend.
Made by a real
I
fiend.
saw something that said Bray Wyatt is now the highest in terms of merchandise sales for WWE. He's the superstar with the highest amount of money made off of merch. And I'm like, what did he do? Sell a belt? Because that's all you needed.
He's got a ton of merch though. He's got the toys from the show. He's got the gloves.
They got
Oh
gloves?
my gosh.
He's got the Mortgage Your House title belt.
Yep.
You
Mortgage Your House title
You
belt.
can sell a kidney and buy a mask.
Yeah,
like, there's
put
a lot
two
of stuff.
liens on the home and,
Yeah.
you could be a pretend champion.
But go figure. He's about the closest thing they've got to the old era, the old attitude, and look what's happening.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to get burnt out on him. I'm worried about that because I think that they're going to be stretching him so across so many things. No pun intended about the belt. Stretch.
I was trying to think of a good pun there, yeah.
Yeah. I find that, I'm worried that we're going to get burnt out on him. I'm a fan of his. I'm interested in seeing what he does. I've never been really sold on Bray Wyatt as an individual as a whole for years. Like, I mean, I've enjoyed some of his matches, but the Sister Abigail is a solid move. Or it's not but. The Sister Abigail is a solid move. I enjoy that. The upside down crawling at you thing never made sense to me. The Randy Orton spaghetti or worms on the screen.
No.
Some of that shit just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm just not the person for it. But for this to be happening, I'm interested. But I am worried that they see, oh my God, he can make money. Let's put him on everything. And I don't
if he's
know
the
if that's
boogeyman, he's supposed to pop out of the shadows once in a while.
Yeah. He's supposed, and I think that that's part of the draw for me is that if you keep him off screen, if you make him something that I, by happenstance, get a chance to see on a live show or even just hear about, that would be great. As I said a couple weeks ago, I'm not fond of the idea of having a champion on every show. A champion's schedule should be somebody that has proven themselves and then shows up at pay-per-views or periodically at pay-per-views, quarterly maybe, but still holds the championship because they've proven that they own it and it's theirs. And I think that that's something that needs to happen with Bray. He needs to step down. He needs to step back. I would also love if they were to separate the two. Bray Wyatt shows up on a regular basis, but The Fiend doesn't show up. I don't know who he is, or I don't know what's going on.
See, Balor had that going with the Demon for a minute there.
Right, and then the Demon died.
Right.
Where's the Demon now?
Yeah.
I'm hoping the Demon will come back at some point and fight the Fiend. That'd be pretty cool. I thought they might go with the superhero thing for a minute because they had Ricochet.
You mean Ricochet?
Yeah.
We got Ricochet. You kind of got Ali wearing like the Iron Man stuff when he comes out.
Yep.
Daniel Bryan could kind of slip into that thing, fighting a giant evil villain. Like, I don't know. They got
Green Man.
pieces to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I think they do have pieces to do it. I think that there's an opportunity for them to really allow for what's the friend of mine said you need to have time away to appreciate the relationship. And I think that is very true about that Fiend.
Yeah.
And I think that if we don't get a show or a Playhouse every week, or if we don't get Bray, and I mean, again, I would love if Bray Wyatt would just show up.
Right.
But if we can keep that desire to build, then that's going to be that much more reason to buy a $6,500 belt.
In the old days, if there was like a band from Reno, Nevada, for example, coming through Kalamazoo and they were going to play a basement house show, I was going to go. And they might play 6 songs in 12 minutes and they were done. And it's like, God damn, I wish they would have played more.
Yeah.
Guess what I'm going to do? buy all their merch because I wanted more, and I'm going to show up at the next show.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Give me less.
Less is more.
Yep.
And it's you need to know how to capitalize and frankly exploit those that are interested.
Yeah.
And it's not a negative approach. It's more so if you don't capitalize on the level of desire, the hunger that the fans have by allowing for them to be trailed out longer and longer and just lure them along,
Yeah.
then you're just feeding into the idea that they're disposable champions. They're just able to be burnt out and then passed along. And that's for Bray, for The Fiend, I really do think that they should have slowed down on that. I really do. I think that they should have had this somewhat to what they were doing with the New Order or the Dark Order, in which they would have a little thing, or even just have his Playhouse show up, and then 2 weeks later, we don't know what we're talking about. Have you seen it? I haven't watched Raw. Well, there was no Playhouse. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I was still interested, but I guess I'll watch next week because I'm hoping to try and catch it.
Yeah.
You create this appetizer that people get a bite of every couple weeks.
Yeah.
You're going to, in turn, create a fan base that is that much... The buzz, the talk,
Yeah.
and the murmur is that much more. Daniel Bryan, if I remember correctly, also had a belt that was the hemp belt that we were talking about the other night. That was also selling for $6,500 at the time in which it was originally released. If I remember correctly, in which it was originally released, they also put it out there, $6,500. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm okay with being wrong, but I think that that's a part of the test balloon that WWE puts out. Is like, hey, we'll make a belt for you, and if we sell a second, then guess what? Now it shows that you're over. Maybe Daniel Bryan didn't get the green belt sold. Maybe The Fiend did. I don't know. It's a sucky belt. It does not, to me, look like a championship. It looks like somebody took a mask and decided to strap it on someone's belt buckle, and it doesn't make any goddamn sense. And I also don't think every champion should have a belt of their own.
Yeah.
I don't think you should tailor-make the success of a trophy to make it mirror the person who is holding said trophy.
Not when they just got it.
Not when they
you hold
not
that
when they
thing
just
for
got
2 or
it.
3 years maybe, but don't give it to me right out of the gate.
Pete Dunne had the UK Championship for almost 2 years, if I remember correctly, and they didn't change a goddamn thing. I don't think he even got side plates until after like 6 months.
Well, he passed it to Walter, and they both are kind of ugly, so they're just going to keep it the same.
I will give a pass to the Smoking Skull belt. Because I definitely believe Austin was the guy.
But how long did he have it for?
Right, exactly.
But again, also, did he make the champion? Like, did he make the championship, or did he make the title something, or was he somebody or did that make him? Like, that's that whole back and forth that we keep running into, in which Vince believes that by putting a title or a belt on somebody, then in turn that makes them a success. And if you have somebody that has a head of steam that is going to make them successful, i.e. The Fiend, and you then slap a belt on them to just try and keep that trajectory going, and then you then alter, tweak, modify the belt to reflect who they are. That means that he's going to drop it.
Yeah, what's
months.
the point of having their own belt if they're going to lose it after 2-3 months?
Because it's not based on the storylines anymore. Wrestling now exists to sell wrestling merch.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say, before we switch over to the Dream Match thing, and we've kind of been saying this before, but I've held to this steadfastly. I told my friend John a handful of months ago that when I heard Fox was giving him all this money they were giving him, I said, I think they're going to go out of business. And that sounds absurd because they had so much money. I was like, no. Now he is so responsible to these huge enterprises that have no idea how wrestling works. He's going to have to answer to them on every little step.
Yeah.
That's why NXT moved and is moving again, apparently.
Possibly, yeah.
But, like, they can't put their most popular guy on TV every 3 weeks because the networks would never allow it. And so now wrestling is being undermined again by the people who are insisting. And that's how WCW went out of business.
Yeah.
So
people who
that is
had
how
no
WCW
idea how wrestling worked.
Yeah, when you're a slave to people who don't understand how your shit works, you're done.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Well, let's get into the mini topic that we wanted to get into that we like to dabble in every week. There's a lot of talk lately that I've seen, especially on wrestling pages, about dream matches. Some matchups that you would have loved to see with two people in their prime together. And the more I started thinking about it, and the more I just started watching more old wrestling and kind of rekindling thoughts and my love for early wrestling, 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, and really going across the board, I really started thinking about it, and I came up with two two dream matches that, may just be a little weird, maybe a little unexpected, but the more I started thinking about it and the way they performed as single wrestlers.
Before you say it, can I just bump?
Yeah.
Can we do this as a format? Because I think it would be fun. When we present our matches, can we all take a turn picking who our winner would be and give our finish?
Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And yeah, so I mean, do you want to do them? Do you want to do them one at a time, or do you want me to tell you both of them?
Let's do them one at a time.
Okay.
Yeah.
The first one that I would really see, probably because it's maybe a little bit less shocking or less predictable, but I think in their prime, two people who I would love to see have an Iron Man match is Shawn Michaels and Ricochet. I think Shawn Michaels in his prime against Ricochet now would be a legendary Iron Man match in what they would be able to do.
Oh, yeah.
Shawn Michaels was an excellent high flyer. He would do unorthodox high flying maneuvers, which dated back to when he was a rocker.
Yeah.
Ricochet is able to do things and come up with ways to hit you with maneuvers that's super unorthodox. He takes a lot of risks, and he is incredibly agile.
He's one of my favorite. He's one of my absolute favorite people in wrestling, not just WWE, but in general.
In general,
he's
absolutely,
amazing.
I totally agree with that. So when I look back at it, I really wish Ricochet and Shawn Michaels could have an Iron Man match, both in their prime, and I think that could be easily a match of the year. Done right, given the time to prepare for it, understand each other's move set, their repertoire, if you will. I think that would just be a phenomenal match, because I was a huge Shawn Michaels fan growing up. Always was, always will be. Say what you want about the guy. He's easily one of the hardest workers in the ring.
All I want to say is he's a sexy boy.
Hey, well, at the same time, though, he's not your boy toy.
So when we make our picks, are we supposed to go strictly by how we feel about them? Are we supposed to base it on skill? Or are we supposed to take into account time, place, and politics?
No, just how you feel that match would ultimately turn out in the viewpoint of being a fan.
Okay. Describe HBK's ring attire so I know which era we're talking about.
Okay, this is definitely going to be the era of probably early DX.
So before or after the white pants with the red hearts? After
Correct.
that? Okay,
Correct.
So we're talking world title Shawn Michaels.
We're talking about 1990, early 1997 Shawn Michaels.
Oh, shit. Well, okay, so my match, it would be Ricochet, just like HBK used to be the one running circles around people.
Yeah.
In this one, they would take turns, but Ricochet would continue to show up the Jedi Master. And I would honestly, in my book, have Shawn playing a bit of the power position and look like he's going to grind it out towards the end. I would probably have Ricochet go over, personally.
That's kind of how my vibe was. And I think Shawn Michaels is the kind of worker, too, who would have no problem putting a guy like that over. Yeah.
I can agree with that. I can definitely agree with that.
That would have been a fucking bomb-ass match.
Can you even imagine? So what's the finish?
It's got to be... If it's going to be an Iron Man match, I feel like it's got to be same scenario where him and Bret Hart went pinless going into overtime.
Yeah.
And it's got to be some kind of... Not a roll-up pin, but some kind of a reversal into a pin.
I was thinking that too, but I'd changed my vote. I would like, exactly like you said, I like to see him go 60 and just be stalemate.
Yeah.
Go into overtime and go another 15 minutes. And even after all that time, Ricochet hits the 630. Even after all that.
Yeah.
And just shows his gas tank. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Word. I can get behind that. I've been just jotting down match after match that I'm interested in seeing. I would say one that has been one that would be very interesting to me, and I'm a big fan, as you probably have gleaned, and as I will relate to Davison as a comment from a couple weeks ago. A big fan of the working individual, somebody that shows up and does the job and maintains, basically the IC champion.
No doubt.
Like that's somebody that works.
So they don't do the JOB, but they show up and work.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
You say they do the job, I got to start thinking about Steve Lombardi over here.
No. So for me, it's hard to narrow down. I would say Malenko and Daniel Bryan.
Woo!
Would be very
That would
fun
be
for me.
really,
That would be really good.
Really technical.
And that's the thing is I like technical wrestling. I
Yep.
like somebody that shows up. So Malenko and Daniel Bryan is something that I think it would start off with people rooting and cheering and hollering with all sorts of excitement for Daniel Bryan and Bryan Danielson and getting all excited about Malenko and doing his thing. But I think that the hype of in respect that each of those folks come into it as jobbers, and not in the sense of negative term, but more so in the sense of people who come into work and to do the job and to know what it takes to not only get someone over, but to also make sure they look good. It's like how AJ Styles is. And people keep reminding me that, yeah, AJ Styles has been in the business forever, but he makes everyone he wrestles look good.
Yeah,
Every single one of them.
And both Malenko and Daniel Bryan did that for other people.
Yeah.
But to allow for both of them to have a moment to shine, the man of 1,000 holds, and Daniel Bryan as somebody who has consistently proven himself as a technical, solid individual wrestler, I would love to watch that.
Yeah.
I would give the win to Malenko. I would, and honestly, Malenko, I think that Daniel Bryan, I think it would be a dynasty thing. I think it'd be a situation in which say we were in a position in which Malenko was coming over, and instead of going into the producer role as he did and the writing role as he did with WWE, he came in and did some wrestling and stuck to it for a little while longer than what he had. And I think that with Daniel Bryan showing up and being a part of that, I think it would be an ode to or a respect to, but it would be an Iron Man match. It would be it would be a barn burner in the sense of consistent technical wrestling, and it was just the breaking down of an individual throughout different movesets and different things. But it wouldn't be high flying. It would be all technical.
Would it be a submission match?
Yes.
Yes,
it would be.
If there
Yes,
was
it would be.
if there was an ending to that match, there was a move Malenko used to do, especially in the early days, where I would see Daniel Bryan going for the jumping knee lift to the head, Malenko reversing it into a gorilla press, dropping
the
their body
gut buster?
down onto his bent knee,
Yeah, the gut buster.
onto his thigh, and then slap him into the in the clover leaf,
Yeah.
and having him tap out before the time runs out.
Oh, that's brutal.
I'm all about that, and I mean, and for Malenko, again, where he's at now at AEW as being a producer and a recruiter and things of that nature, I find interesting and genuinely something that I'm excited about.
Yeah.
I don't know whether or not he needs to be in the back of the house pointing and saying this camera goes here or writing storyline. I want him to be able to start scouting as a means to try and draw the roster, build up the possibility of some technical folk.
Yeah.
I'm about that. I think that would be something of genuine interest.
I agree. I would be into that scenario with him coming in. The time would have to be all different. So let's say he was coming in from WCW and that Daniel Bryan was already on his way up to the Yes Movement.
Oh, yeah.
I would like it to be a thing almost like when Cody and Dustin fought. Now, obviously, the storyline was about family and history and all that. But what it became was the older person gaining respect from the younger person and younger fans because of the work he put in. I would like to see Daniel Bryan as a little bit of the younger upstart challenging a person who he sees as the technical master, and they get into a proper Wu-Tang battle. And if we're going to go along with that submission finish format, I don't often think specifically about it, but Daniel Bryan is just on my list. Like I'm not going to put him on my big one just now, the Rushmore, but there's never been a time I haven't loved Daniel Bryan, ever. And him being back is just like such a happy thing for me. But so I remember when he beat Cena for the world title at that SummerSlam, whenever that was, like at the height of the Yes Movement. And that's when he busted out that running knee. Nobody had seen it, and that's what he finished with. I just love that visual of him with somebody in that label lock, and the crowd is just doing the yes behind him. It's just so like, I don't know, it just turns me on as a wrestling fan. I guess I would like to see it come right down to the wire, have Daniel Bryan hit that running knee, throw Malenko into that label lock, and then I'm not copping out, but I would like to revert back again to that Stone Cold Bret Hart finish where Malenko just fades. Yeah. Daniel wins, but the people are all into Malenko's effort, and he never quit.
There was a move, I can't remember what it was, but Daniel Bryan, or Bryan Danielson, when he was in Ring of Honor, there was a move that he did that just brutal, and I can't remember the name of it or remember what it looks like. But every single time I saw it, I was
Was
like,
it a submission finish?
it was a submission finish.
Was it where you double chicken winged a person?
Yeah.
Yes.
He's a vegan. His finish was called cattle mutilation.
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember that.
Yeah,
yes.
it was a double chicken wing somersault into an arch. Yeah, it's hard to describe.
Look it
unless
up.
you've seen it, but yeah, cattle mutilation. That was cool.
That was a move. That's a move that I want him. I was hoping he would bring back when he brought back when he won the championship to become the green title or the international
the champion,
savior.
the world champion of the world.
Yeah, champion of the world. Yeah, if when he came back, with that, I would love for very much him to have done that move. I really would have.
Oh, because he's referenced. Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
And I mean, I like the darkness of it, but yeah, that would have been the route I went.
Right.
I've got 3 more matches that I'm interested in throwing out there, but Davison, it looks like that
let's
you've
do
got
the
your-
roundy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were talking about the buying up of the old pay-per-views earlier, and you all mentioned Halloween Havoc, which is a tremendous coincidence because I came in with the Yeti, Papa Shango, and the Zombie
What?
versus Pentagon, Ultimate Warrior,
Oh my God.
and Luna Vachon.
Oh my God. That is awesome.
I'm fucking kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Oh my God, that is great. I'm not. That's freaking dope.
The visual,
Especially at Halloween Havoc.
especially at Halloween Havoc.
Thank you. Thank
Boogeyman,
you.
special guest referee.
We skipped past the topic earlier. I just tossed it in there.
Nice.
No. So coming back to the work rate thing again, T, I've really been pleased to hear how much of a fan you are of this one wrestler. I mean, it makes sense. He's amazing. And let's just acknowledge we've broken the taboo. We openly talk about Chris Benoit in this room. Off the air, we've talked about the fact that obviously there's a horrible, horrible ending to that story. And we've also agreed that per everybody's witness accounts of that guy for decades, something horrible happened and he lost his marbles.
Yeah.
So for the duration of his career, I'm still willing. This isn't an R. Kelly forgiveness thing. That was a brain damaged individual doing some shit thing.
Yes.
In lieu of that, I would say that Benoit was always one of my favorites, and there's no question how much he's influenced global wrestling with all that strong style stuff, from Japan as well. I want to see Chris Benoit take on Pete Dunne.
Yes.
He is on my list. That was my number 2.
Was it really?
Yes.
Well.
Sorry, I'm yelling into the
That's
mic.
awesome.
But yeah, that was on my list as well.
Just like I said before, that Scott
Really?
Dawson,
Yeah.
from, help me out, the tag team Scott Dawson's in, The Revival.
Oh, yeah.
He looks and moves and acts like Arn Anderson. I look at Pete Dunne and how he moves and wrestles, and I think that some of that stuff is actually pulled from several UK wrestlers, obviously, and I see Daniel Bryan influence.
Yeah.
But where does all that come from?
Right.
All the way back to the Benoit boy. Yeah.
That's wild.
So I wouldn't put any stipulations on it because this is going to be a banger. It ain't going to go more than 15 minutes. And I think there will be hard-way blood both ways, head and chest. And I am going to say that Benoit wins that fight. I've been thinking about it, and the way I visualize Benoit in his young prime, and maybe it's just because of where I was at in my time of life or whatever, I haven't been able to find a person who I can say would win like a straight-up fight with Benoit.
I agree with that, and I don't think that it would be a situation in which he would be slapping the shit out of somebody like he did that Tough Enough kid.
No.
I think it'd be a situation in which, at the end of that, there is an understanding or a respect or an appreciation for what Pete Dunne brought to the table. And that was why he was on my list. Aside from the fact that I love Pete Dunne as the UK champion and want him to become the UK champion again, I also do see, shades of Benoit or shades of, as you said, that strong style. There's a certain level of that to it. And yeah, Benoit versus the bruiserweight, Pete Dunne, that was my number 1. That was my number 1. So I switched over to Malenko and Bryan because I was like, man, that'd be interesting. But Benoit, Pete Dunne,
Yeah, and I got Benoit winning not even by flying headbutt or submission. I think they just are chopping each other
until the fall.
If somebody falls over, and maybe Benoit, even just from exhaustion, falls over him. 1, 2, 3, and it's another one of those things where he won, but they're both dead.
Right.
I would watch the hell out of that.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
So who you have winning?
I'd have to give it to Benoit too. It's nothing to take away from Pete Dunne, but I also think Pete Dunne is also the kind of person that if he had someone like Chris Benoit to go up against, if Benoit was around in his prime, I think just the two styles would complement each other.
Yeah, and it would be a test of the metal. Steel sharpens steel.
Yep.
And I think that would be, that would get Pete Dunne over that much more as a solid, hardcore champion. Not hardcore in the sense of like we know, but hardcore in the sense of somebody that is a talented athlete who works.
JR would call him raw-boned.
Raw-boned.
Pete Dunne losing the title to Walter was a non-loss to me. You know what I mean? Like, clearly he lost. And it was even a clean win.
Yeah.
But Walter is just a mountain of a man.
Yeah.
He will kill everybody in sight. And so, yeah, losing to Benoit in a chop in a fist fight is the same to me as losing to Walter. You didn't lose. Like, all you can do is win. You know, surviving is winning.
Yeah.
Surviving is winning. And dark.
I'm just saying.
And yes, we will acknowledge and add the asterisk
shit,
at
now
the
I know what
very
you're
end of
thinking.
that
Wow.
is that yes, we are not supporters of and believers in that he was
troubled.
He was troubled at the end, and we
shit
don't
ended
take away
terribly.
from that. And it did
We're
end
talking
terribly
strictly talking about him as a professional wrestler.
in the 9 to 5 position.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep, 100%.
So, my second dream match, after reflecting upon it, was kind of, you know, and the cool thing is this is all, you know, what we would want to see, but it would also change. It would also involve changing the timeline and adding certain stipulations to the wrestlers themselves.
Jump into my time machine.
I would really have liked to see a rivalry stem from two people who I generally really loved watching to wrestle. Now, one of them is still active. Kenny Omega is an excellent storyteller. He, to me, embodies he almost like his ability to have the crowd behind him. It is almost reminiscent of Bret Hart when he was gaining his fan base. Just the way he's able to put his body on the line. Totally different wrestler, not comparing wrestling styles at all, but just his personality and what he's willing to do. And he's obviously able to take it to the limit. And I think if there was anybody he could ever have an incredibly passionate rivalry with that I personally would have loved to see, it would have been a situation where he went up against a guy who, unfortunately, his injury ended up crippling him, and it eventually, I think, ended up causing him to die early. But I would have loved to see Kenny Omega feud with a healthy, loose cannon Brian Pillman.
Oh, man, that's good. They have the same hair and everything.
Like, those two personalities, like Brian Pillman. And for those who don't know, Brian Pillman was a former Cleveland Browns player. And this was when people said...
No, Bengals. He's from Cincinnati.
Bengals. My apologies.
Yeah, he was in the NFL.
But he was told that even as a young kid...
What? Well, no, here's the crazy part, just to prove it. I just heard JR talking about it recently. The dude was like 5'9".
Yeah.
When he played football, he was like 210. He was a defensive lineman.
Are you kidding me? Brian Pillman.
Well, he was a killer. Yeah.
He would. There's people who still say like I would watch the Bengals, like even wrestlers, like I think it was maybe, and don't quote me on this, I think maybe Animal had even said that, like, I remember seeing him play and just make these tackles that were just, he would just sprint towards whoever had the ball and just claw his way to take them down. And he was always told, you're never going to be a football player.
He was like the real life Rudy. Well, Rudy was real life.
For real.
He's the sports entertainment, quote unquote, real life Rudy.
He was Rudy. He was the Rudy.
He was Rudy before Rudy was Rudy.
But and he was a real trendsetter in WCW too, because this is when it was very much mat wrestling. Everything was kind of low key. He was a high flyer. And a lot of people loved working with Brian Pillman because he would do new things. He was wrestling in a way that people in WCW weren't used to.
He was in Japan for a minute because he was a Stampede guy. He got trained by the Hearts, which is its own Medal of Honor.
Which is why he ended up eventually becoming a part of the Hart Foundation later on in his WWE career.
But I remember those days you're talking about because, they were talking about, wow, he's high flying. But if you look back, it was him doing like springboard clotheslines and like drop kicks from the top rope. And we've talked about like the Rockers doing that way back then was revolutionary. Today it's like, oh, ho-hum. But, like you said, he had all that mystique. He had that great Kip Winger hair.
Yeah.
He wore the actual Cincinnati Bengals shorts. They're like orange with black stripes. Then he got cooler in WCW eventually.
Yeah,
With the jean
absolutely.
shorts.
And
Yeah,
when he turned
Jorts.
into the loose cannon in WWE, that kind of sucked because when he crushed his ankle, that was basically the end of his life. And a lot of people, even Jim Ross, have said like he believes he died of a broken heart because he knew he was never going to be able to perform the way he wanted to, and he just, even people have said, like, you look at who Brian Pillman was, and a lot of people like, oh, he went peacefully in his sleep. They're like, if you knew Brian Pillman, you knew he did not go out peacefully.
Yeah.
He went out fighting, and that's just his attitude because he was always kind of shoved to the ground, told you're never going to be anything, you're never going to be, and he constantly proved people wrong. And you take that mentality with the talent that he had, especially when he was with the Hollywood Blondes with Stunning Steve.
I was going to ask you if you were going to get into Hollywood Blondes.
And then you take that loose cannon factor when he was super talented, and you take it with that character, with the healthiness of when he was just Flying Brian Pillman. If you take that character with his health and you put it up against Kenny Omega, that is a frickin' feud that I would love to see.
Yes, it is.
Over and over.
In that equation, I got to have the loose cannon as the heel.
Yeah, absolutely. Loose
Yeah.
Cannon's got to be the heel, but I'm also going to give him the win too.
Wow.
Oh.
I'm also going to give him the win because
What's the finish?
it's got to be something. He's got to take Omega out. Do you recall what Pillman's finisher was, or if he even had one?
That's why
What's that?
I was making a joke about Pillbuster.
Pilsner.
Oh man. Well, I think that's why I said wow the way I did. I don't even know what his finish was.
Yeah. I have no idea what his finish was, but I would have to give the win to him, the initial win, especially if they were going to do a feud. Kenny Omega's kind of that. He doesn't have a problem losing, obviously.
No.
But I think Pillman is just so. If I'm pitting those two up against each other, it's Pillman's will. It's Pillman not backing down, keep crushing, and pull out a reverse victory out of nowhere. Hit him with something quick and end it 1, 2, 3, and that's just the beauty of thinking about stuff like this. Is like, that character was just fantastic,
Yeah.
and it just sucks because he wasn't around that long.
No, it was like right when he was catching steam, he flipped his car or whatever it was and
Yeah, he got
crushed his
ejected.
foot. So I'm gonna respectfully accept your finish, and I'm gonna put an asterisk and say, I think you need to watch a lot more Japanese wrestling.
Okay.
Omega's lore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go ahead and say you could have said Omega in anybody, and I don't give a fuck if it was Prime
Jericho?
Hogan. I don't care if it was Prime
Right.
Undertaker.
Yeah.
If you have the time to sometime go back and overlap a couple years of wrestling into
Yeah.
your current life,
Yeah.
which isn't going to happen, the way that Omega went from introduction to NJPW, he became their light heavyweight champion. He got into Bullet Club. In over like 18 months, he slowly gained weight. He got into the heavyweights. He won Wrestle Kingdom. He took on Okada 4 times in total, finally beat him 3rd time for the title. Even as much as I just talked about Daniel Bryan and the Yes Movement, that couple years of Omega's career is just
Gold.
legend. He's a god.
Yeah.
He doesn't lose to me. I have a hard time believing it when he loses to anybody on AEW right now. I know why he's doing it.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
he's built up so high for some of us. I'm not saying
Right.
it like that, but I mean, there is no comparison. I cannot put him in any match and say he loses.
Yeah, and I can
That's
agree
fair.
with that. I would say that I think that part of the whole, jumping for a second, part of the whole rub with him in AEW and losing so much and him slowly losing his mind on that side is I'm interested to see as to whether or not they make him a heel that then beats the shit out of everybody because
Yeah.
he's lost it.
I kind of hope so. He was a fun heel when he was in NJPW.
Man, yeah, his those Okada matches.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
And honestly, I know I've mentioned it before, the Punk and Samoa Joe trilogy from back
Yeah.
in the day in Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
When they got into that, Joe was a tweener his whole world title run. He was
Yeah.
almost 2 years as well with the Ring of Honor title at the time. Punk came in and he was always just kind of like, he'd kind of been a heel, but he was smarmy like he always was.
Yeah.
So when they got in that angle, it was really cool. It felt very Japanese because all of a sudden the heel-face dynamics just went out the window.
Yeah.
And it was just a wrestling thing. The way I would imagine a Malenko and Bryan match going.
Yeah.
You know, like they might come in with persona.
Yeah, very
Eventually
true.
it just becomes wrestling.
Yep. Chopping match would be the same thing with Benoit and Pete Dunne. Yeah, it's just because it's a test of the metal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Metal of the man.
Well, so anyway, I already blew it, but yeah, I got Omega with a one-wing angel.
There you go.
That's my finish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same boat.
Do we have time for one more tease and one more of mine?
Yeah, we got a couple more minutes here.
Cool. Rock and roll. Go on ahead.
Me? All right. You know, it's surprising to me. I told my friend John that we were going to be doing this, and we ran each other. We're in a couple by each other. I was fan of both of these back in the late 90s, and I would not put either of them even in my top probably 10 all-time favorites. But I don't know what hit me. This was talked about by a ton of people, and it very nearly happened, but it was like 15 years past when it should have. Prime Sting somehow finding his way to fight Prime Undertaker.
Oh, yeah.
Number 3, God bless America.
Wow.
Davison.
Hey,
2 for 2.
turns out you like good wrestling. You like good wrestling.
And it absolutely is. If you're going to talk about phenoms, there's no two bigger phenoms in wrestling than The Undertaker and Sting.
I don't know. I shouldn't have to clarify, but I'm obviously talking about
Sting?
Starrcade '97 Sting, who came down and beat Hogan his first match after like 18 months away.
And not
that
talking.
Sting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, I would even say give me The Undertaker though, like 3 years after his debut when he was still like slow and
No doubt.
quiet.
No
Yeah.
doubt.
Give me that
Purple gloves.
match.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I had that on my list as well. And I definitely did.
love
Because
it.
I'm sitting here thinking, I'm staring at it and thinking, man, if I would have chosen though, I would not have gone with black and white Sting or red and black Sting. I would have gone with Sting that was being coached by Ric Flair with the mindset of all that Technicolor Dreamcoats being saved by RoboCop. I would have taken that Sting.
Surfer
who
Boy
is-
Sting.
Surfer Boy Sting.
Yeah.
And the reason being is because you're going against this Technicolor Dreamcoat against this dead man. And I would have taken that.
Also light and dark kind of.
Light and dark. But then I would also have said Undertaker still takes it though.
Oh.
I wouldn't have given it to Sting. As much as I love him, I would have allowed for Undertaker to maintain it. Why? The Phenom, the dead man, never rests.
If I love it. If I take your equation and I take Color Bomb Sting and I take Old School Undertaker, I would give it to Taker. If I take Crow Sting with all of his anti-NWO malice,
Yeah.
I am going to say it goes a very long time. And after about 10 pin attempts and God knows how many reverse DDTs, what was it called, Scorpion Death Drops,
Yep.
Sting gets the win.
At WrestleMania?
Nope.
That's a variable.
Not at
That's the
WrestleMania.
variable.
SummerSlam?
Maybe at Halloween Havoc. I would say, honestly, any other thing besides Mania. But, you know, we did say politics aside and WrestleMania happened. That was kind of a kayfabe
I think.
thing. But I hear what you're saying.
I think I got a split decision on that match. I think if it's a match, if it's a normal match, and this may sound weird, but it's just the way my wrestling mind works. If it's a normal match, I got to give it to Undertaker against Crow Sting. But if it's a casket match, I would have Sting over the Undertaker as an ultimate changing of the guard to completely.
Oh, give it away? Give the gimmick away?
I would have.
Sting can start just throwing people in coffins? That'd be the shit.
Interesting.
If we're going to do that,
So,
we need
hey.
to talk about who's going to get the Buried Alive gimmick.
Right. Hey.
Duke the Dumpster Drosy, obviously.
Oh, legend. Genius.
Write me my check.
Oh my God. Okay, let's get into next episode. Let's get into some of your favorite matches, not necessarily because you think they're the greatest of all time, but just some really fun matches you enjoy watching for just a particular reason. Maybe because it was exciting, the match was exciting, the build-up. What are just some of your favorite matches that you enjoy watching that you can go back and have no problem revisiting?
Yeah, sweet.
Makes sense to me.
Sounds good.
Killer. Thanks for listening for the Crucial Squared Circle. Make sure you subscribe 1049 The Edge, the most crucial podcast. All of these are getting crumpeted out every week. So
I
unless
thought
there's
T
like
took a position against crumpets in the first episode.
Hey, now, they're dry as shit.
Thank you. I agree.
All right, we'll get back to the Crucial Squared Circle, another episode coming next week. Thanks for joining us.